So I've showed you some nice features about Google App Engine like sending mail and using the task queues, but the reality is that's only the tip of the iceberg. I've shown you how to use them. Those are real. You can go ahead and use it. But if you were to write a real program, you would probably want some other parameters. You'd probably want to configure it another way. You'd probably want to learn how it works in a little bit more detail. Or maybe you'd like to learn any of the other number of dozens of features that Google App Engine supports. So how would you learn that? And the answer is through the documentation. The reality is the information that I am showing you here is only enough to get you started. It's not going through all of the features of Google App Engine or any hosting service. These are very complex services and there are many, many features. Each one of the features is quite understandable and you are fully capable of understanding it. But when you want to go and do something, you're going to have to be willing and able to go look up this stuff yourself. So how do you do it? Do a search. I would start by saying Google App Engine search by just saying GAE. Usually put in Python because there are also other languages like Java that are supported. And look for what you want to learn about. If you want to look for task queues, then search for a task queue and see what you get. And it almost always comes up with the beginning of this. See where you are. We're in the Python services task queues, and here we go, overview. So here's an overview of task queues. It turns out there's two kinds of queues, push queues and pull queues, right? We only looked at one of them. Then it goes ahead and tells you how to use them. And this, in fact, is exactly how I've learned about these things. I learned about them in the past. I refreshed my memory in order to record this video. And if you want full details, go to the reference. And the reference is a full list of all of the classes and all of the methods. And you go through and you read these things. So I had said we were going to talk about cron jobs. Cron jobs are very conceptually similar to task queues, but instead of putting something on a task queue to execute at once, you configure the system to execute a URL with some regularity. How do you learn about those? Well, I'm not going to tell you, so you'd have to go search for Google App Engine, Python, cron, and we'll find something very similar. And here it is. I will tell you there's one conceptual difference between cron jobs in Google App Engine and task queues, which is task queues you set up entirely in your code itself, right? Just within your core code. To use cron jobs, you actually have to open your app.yaml file and you'll have to configure the how you want the regularity of your cron job to execute. That's set up in your configuration rather than in your code. But that's all explained here, right? Here's the cron.yaml that you need to configure. In fact, it even tells you right here. You can set up a description, the URL you want to execute, and the schedule, how often you want to execute it, like every 24 hours or every Monday at 9 o'clock. It's actually pretty straightforward. I will say that cron jobs are actually really important in general for computing. There are a lot of cases where you want to do something with some regularity. Maybe you have a web server running on your own computer and you want to do some analysis on that web server, right? We've written code to do web log analysis. Maybe you want to automatically do that analysis once every night and send you a mail message telling you some statistics about, for example, how many people are accessing your website. Well, if you're on a Unix system, which includes being on a Mac, and you can actually configure Windows to, you can download equivalents in Windows to do the same kind of thing, there is something called a cron job manager on all Unix systems that let you do something very similar on your desktop. And I'm going to show you very quickly how that works because it's also really useful. So if you go to your command line, you can learn about these things through the program called cron tab. Cron tab is really the table of cron jobs. So we're going to look at the manual page for cron tab. It tells us very briefly, we can say cron tab and just give it a file name which contains a description of our frequency and applications we want to run. Or we can do -L to list the current cron tab. I don't think I have anything set up right now. Cron tab -L, there is none. So if I want to create one, I need to create a cron tab file. Well, how do I learn what the format is? The easiest way is just go Google cron tab format. We'll find lots and lots of websites that explain what this looks like. But this is the essence here, which is it is a simple text file with 1 row per entry in your cron tab with 5 numbers. The frequency, the minute you want to execute it at, the hour, the day of the month, the month name, and the day of the week, and then the command you want to execute. If you put a star, that means it will do it every month. So if we put star, 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 that'll mean execute this thing of every minute of every hour of every day of every month, every day of the week. Or you can say put the hour to be 0 and the minute to be 0, and then it'll execute only at midnight every day. And it's very straightforward to do this. We can go ahead and just edit a little file here. I'm just going to call this my CT, my cron tab, and I'm going to put 5 stars. So I'm going to have this execute every minute. What do I want it to do? Well, if you don't know Unix, this is going to be a little bit harder, but you basically can put in any command name. I'm just going to say run the date command and send that off to add it to a file. And we'll just put it in a little temp file called dates.txt. I'm going to set this up, cron tab CT, and that's it. It's running, right? If I go and say cron tab -L, it will show me what is stored in my cron tab. And if I look in my temp directory, it's already created one for me. Let's go look at the contents of that. Cat dates.txt, and sure enough, it ran at 2:23, and that's exactly what time it is right now. If we go and wait a minute, then it will run in the background, right, and add some more. The point of this is that there are a lot of utilities built into computers that are common, or they're conceptually common, whether it's running on your desktop or on a web server, even though there might be different mechanisms to do that. And once you know the basic capabilities and the basic language, you can figure all the stuff out yourself. You can look at the man page for cron tabs, you can look up the format on the web, and then you can go look at the documentation for the cron queue on Google App Engine, and you can start writing really sophisticated data processing and data management programs yourself. Alright, let's see if another minute has passed. It has, and sure enough, this dates.txt file now has something added onto it. Alright, I don't want this running for the rest of my life, so I am going to delete this by creating a empty CT file. Sorry, let's go back to where it was. Delete that line and tell cron tab to go update itself from that now empty file, and that will actually update it to be empty. Confirm that it's empty. Got nothing going, and I should be back to where I had started.